morning, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today's goal is to get this Evo 10, Jared's Evo 10, previously our Evo 10, like Bobby's Evo 10, which kind of made it my Evo 10. So technically it used to be my Evo 10. Goal today is to get this car ready for the dyno, which is on Monday. Today's Saturday, so we should be able to get everything knocked out today, just in case we can't. We still have tomorrow that we can. There's not a whole lot to do, but there still is, like, you know, there's some parts here we got to get installed. MAP heat shield, aluminum valve cover that we do need a powder coat, new turbo to downpipe gasket, oil pressure gauge, install kit for our Walbro 450 fuel pump, DWFF70 inline filter, fuel pump hardwire kit. I wrote a little laundry list of things that all needs to be done. So valve cover, fuel pump, fuel filter, oil gauge, oil pressure gauge, BOV, wire up for the Tactrix cable, fuel pressure gauge, heat shield, maybe new plugs, probably. Make sure the EBS is plumbed correctly, fluids, downpipe gasket, there's a check engine light I want to scan, and an AWC light we need to figure out as well, which the AWC light, that might just be because, is it low on fluid? Let's take a look. Not really. Might need to be bled, which is hard to do by yourself. I think I'm gonna tackle the fuel system first, just because that's the only thing I'm not 100% sure if we have everything. We have to install a Walbro 450 into the factory hangar. Where the hell is the pump at? Here's our Walbro 450 fuel pump. We already tried to install it once. We didn't have the proper install kit, so we picked up a Torque Solutions Evo 10/Rally Art fuel pump holder. We have a lot here. Let's get to work. We have the fuel pump hanger out. I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble it. Pretty easy to do. Just pull off this little circlip right here. We got some wiring connectors here. So we have the Walbro 450 installed. You can see the Torque Solutions mount there. Everything's wired up. We did drill the return to 330 seconds. I've been trying to decide if we're gonna hardwire it. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and hardwire it right now so we don't have any issues on the dyno. So we have a DW hardwire kit down there. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this factory wiring off. I do need to drill a few holes in the top of the hanger to pass some wiring through. This yellow wire here is gonna connect to the red wire on the pump, and then we're gonna run a separate ground for the pump as well. So let's go ahead and get that wired up, and then we can run the rest of the wiring for the hardwire kit. When it is hardwired, it is constantly gonna be running at 14 volts, where stock, the OEM pump runs around 9 to 10 volts at idle. So you would need a fuel pressure regulator like we have already installed on this car right there. Let's get this whole thing wired up. This is taking way longer than it should. This hanger was a little bit tricky to get figured out, but we got it figured out. So we have the fuel pump pretty much ready to go. You do have to JB weld the wiring going into the hanger. We have to let that cure for about an hour and a half. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and install the inline fuel filter. So over here we have a bunch of fittings, we have some line, and we have a filter. So let's get this kit built out. I'm not sure where, let's see how big this filter is. Hopefully it's not too big. All right, we just gotta figure out where we're gonna mount this guy, and then we can build the lines. This is of course gonna run in the fuel feed line, which on a stock Evo, with this line right here going into the fuel rail. see right there, it connects to the factory hard line that runs from the pump, comes up, filters mounted right there, goes into the fuel rail right there. Next up, and pretty much the last thing for the fuel system, is our fuel pressure gauge. So this is gonna go right onto the rail, probably on that plug right there. You can use either one. All right, moving on. Next task is going to be the downpipe gasket. Let me pull off the downpipe gasket that's on the car right now, and then make show you guys the difference between what we have on there, which does not work, versus what we need on there, that guy there. So you can clearly see there's a difference here. This gasket would be for an OEM downpipe. You have to run a gasket like this that has that bridge in the middle if you have a O2 dump. Otherwise, it sounds like you have a mad exhaust leak, because you kind of do. Your O2 dump will be constantly leaking exhaust, super annoying. So make sure you're running this style gasket with an external, or with the O2 dump. Let's go ahead and tackle the heat shield. Would highly recommend a firewall heat shield on a 10 if you're running a tubular manifold like so, or a top mount turbo kit, or if you just want to be safe and not burn your car to the ground. These things are not very fun to install, but it's got to be done. Next up, I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the valve cover. Valve cover is gonna be powder coated the same color as the brakes on the car, which kind of matches the paint on the car. Being that it's brand new and bare metal, I am not going to sandblast it. When I powder coated the cover on my 10, I didn't sandblast it. It's been holding up fine for about 3 years. There's no wear and tear whatsoever on a valve cover, as long as you don't beat it with a hammer. And it saves probably like 3 hours of removing baffles and drilling and tapping the valve cover for threads. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. I am just gonna clean it. I'm gonna hose it down with brake cleaner, force let it all evaporate, and then we can get this guy powder coated, whatever color the brakes are. I'll have to go look exactly what color we did those. The color we are doing on the valve cover is Lollipop Red. Prismatic powers, of course. This is a transparent color, meaning you need a nice shiny base underneath to get an actual good color. So we are gonna spray super chrome, let that bake, let it completely cure out, flow out, pull the valve cover out of the oven, and then we're gonna hit it with the Lollipop Red, and it's gonna look insane. Next up, I have a new BOV for this car. You're welcome, Jared. I know you don't know that I have one, but I don't think the stock crushed BOV is gonna work very well for it. All right, we're knocking a bunch of things off this list. We're pretty much all finished up. That epoxy we put on the fuel pump hanger is still not dry. It's been like 3 or 4 hours now. It says 4 to 6 hours on the thing, on the tube. I don't know why earlier I thought it was 1 hour, but yeah, 4 to 6 hours. So hopefully it dries tonight. If not, this car's gonna be stuck at the shop. But left on our list is figure out why the oil pressure gauge is not working, which I cannot do that if we can't start the car. Can't start the car with no fuel pump. Check engine light, I scanned that. That's just for like the MyVec delete that we did. All that's gonna be taken care of when this car is tuned. AWC light, probably gonna have to rebleed the system, which I need a second hand for that. And then what else? We have to wire in our wideband sensor to log it with Evo Scan, so Chag can see our AFRs. Pretty easy to do. I think it's just the blue, it's either the blue or the white wire that comes off the wideband. Wire that into the serial to USB adapter, and then the black wire you ground. All right, so here's what we got. Blue wire on this serial to USB adapter, goes to the blue wire on the AEM wideband. Black wire just simply grounds, and then that's all you need. So this is the key span 888. I'm gonna go ahead and link this thing down below, and of course every other part that we're installing today, I'll link down below. The epoxy is finally dry enough to get this guy back in the car. So the hanger goes back in just like it would before. We have to get it all wired up. Hanger is reinstalled in the car. So the blue wire on, let's run through again real quick on the wiring for the hardwire kit. Blue wire on the DW hardwire kit connects to the blue wire on the hanger. Yellow wire goes to the hanger, connects to the power on the fuel pump. We have a separate ground wire coming out off of the ground on the fuel pump. So now all that's left is ground wire, constant 12 volt. Just connect it right to the battery. And then we'll have to test everything out, make sure we don't have any fuel leaks, make sure we can get fuel pressure under control. But let me get this wired up and then we can move forward. All right, this thing's pretty much all finished up. Let's go ahead, fire it up and see what happens. I cannot get base fuel pressure under 60 PSI. We did already drill the return orifice to 330 seconds, and I thought that would take care of it. I need to do some research online. A lot of people with a hardwired Walbro 450 have ran into this issue, so I'm gonna see what other people do. Really don't wanna run a -6 return. I know that'd fix the issue, but it's a lot of work. All right, just went through the whole entire fuel system again, trying to find some sort of restriction in the fuel return line. Could not find anything, ended up drilling out the orifice. Before it was 0.93, I just went up to an 0.99. So pretty much 0.1, a tenth of an inch. Fuel pressure is now at 50 PSI idle. I'm gonna leave that. I cannot talk to Chag until Monday. So if we need to drill it more, I will. But I know you cannot go too big or you lose the Venturi effect, which that is how you get fuel from the other side of the tank. But last thing to do is go ahead and get our valve cover on. I put it outside to cool down, and then I messed with the fuel system for like 70 freaking hours. I'm sure it's cooled off by now. This, my friends, is Lollipop Red. Cannot get much better than that. I know it's a little bit light down in there. All the coils cover that. I could have got it a little bit better, but not too concerned because you will not be able to see it. Lollipop Red from Prismatic, one of the best reds I've ever seen in my life. Let's get this janky plastic valve cover off. That is probably going to catch on fire eventually, and we can get the new metal powder coated valve cover installed. Now somewhere in the shop or at Jared's place, there is the JDC titanium hardware for the valve cover. I can't seem to find it, but damn, can we appreciate how good that looks. Not only does it look good, it also actually does serve a purpose because the plastic ones tend to catch on fire. So like I said earlier, if you're running a top mount turbo or a tubular manifold, I would highly recommend a metal valve cover, which they are, as far as I know, they're still in stock at MAP. We were able to cross off every single thing on our list today, except for the AWC light. I need 2 hands for that. So a very successful day. Oil pressure gauge was fixed. It ended up being the gauge, not the sensor that was bad, surprisingly. I swapped the sensor, still showed 0 PSI, put a new gauge in it, and now we're finally getting some oil pressure readings. Every single part that we installed today, whole laundry list of parts, I'll link down below. Big shout out to Prismatic Powders for sending over the beautiful Lollipop Red for the valve cover. Let's take another look at it. This bay is immaculate now. It looks so nice. I'll have that powder coat link down below. I'll link the powder coat gun down below. I'll just link everything that we did down below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This thing hits the dyno not tomorrow, but the following day. It might be the next video you see. I'm not sure if I'm gonna record tomorrow or not. So yeah, hopefully making around 500 to hopefully over 500 wheel on E is the end goal. We may need to mess with the fuel system a little bit more to get that base pressure down. I guess we'll see come Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow.